So the holidays just came and went, and I didn't actually film an intro when I was originally doing this, but basically I made a silver and turquoise bracelet for my girlfriend, and I wanted to document the process. I had mono during the first, well, I had mono the whole time, but I was facing some of the more major symptoms at the beginning of the video, so if you see a weird rash, that's what it is, that's irrelevant. But anyways, here's the process of making a cool bracelet. I hope you enjoy. Anyways, so here's the rough design. Basically just gonna be 2 split pieces of silver, bezel with a turquoise stone in the middle. And yeah, nothing too crazy. Got our materials here. So the turquoise stone I selected. And I already pre-prepared the 2 pieces of silver for the band, the bezel, and the back plate for the bezel. So we've got our pre-cut piece of back plate here, and our bezel wire. So first things first, I'm just going to kind of make sure that they're flattened in all the areas they need to be. So I've got it, for the most part, pretty flat. This is the face that I'm gonna use as like the bezel wire is gonna be soldered onto the side. So if I put it on this flat surface here, it's pretty good, pretty good. This is a lot softer, so it's easier to kind of work with the bezel wire. It's honestly not bad. I just did it by hand because it's really soft. It's silver, so. Now we're gonna take our stone. Just kind of roughly shape this around it. So I've got it roughly shaped here around the stone, and then I'm going to mark it. So now that I've got it marked, you can see that I marked it on the inside a little bit, just so when I cut this, both this side and this side are flush, basically, or cut with the same profile, and it makes it a little bit easier to file them down and then solder them. So now we've got our bezel here, not soldered. It's not perfectly aligned, but when we solder it, it should hopefully fit the stone. So let's go ahead and get this filed down and soldered. Okay, now I have the bezel ready for soldering. I sanded down the gap so they fit pretty flush together, and then just bent it so it was pretty springy so they'd stick together so I can solder. So next step is gonna be soldering with this big old acetylene torch. So let's get to work. And since we have a staged soldering process, since we have to make the bezel, then we have to make the band, then we have to attach the bezel to the band, we're gonna use 3 different stages of solder. So to make the bezel, we're gonna be using hard solder, so that is the highest melting point. To make the band, we're gonna be using medium solder, which is slightly lower than that. And then when we attach the bezel to the band, we're gonna use easy solder, which is an even lower melting point, so that when we attach the bezel to the band, it doesn't heat up so much that it melts the band solder or the bezel solder. So it's just preventative, or using this stage solder system just means that we don't melt any of the solder that we have on any other stages. So let's go. We're gonna do hard solder for the bezel here. And there we go. We got solder flow. Oh, so you can see here that the solder flowed. And now I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to quench it. Okay, so let's shape this a little better. Doesn't look flush quite yet, so let's put the camera level here. Kind of just rotate this to see if there are any gaps underneath, which it doesn't look or feel like there are any. So that should be good. Looks pretty good. So let's check quickly to see if it fits the stone. So hopefully it fits the stone. Okay, so it does fit the stone. It's a little on the tight side of things, which I think will be okay. But there's really only one way to tell, so I'm gonna test the fit on the back plate real quick and just see how it looks. The only thing I think maybe that I need to flatten a little bit more is that back corner, because it looks like there's a little gap there, and gaps cannot be filled by solder, so you got to make sure those aren't there. Or another thing I'm also going to do is sand down the bezel plate, because the more flush the connection between the back plate and the bezel, the better. So okay, so let's see if I can kind of show you a little bit inside of here. You see I have the solder just aligned at the edges of the thingy, so solder flows towards the heat if I can remember properly. So I'm gonna kind of like heat from the edges so it flows outwards and under into the thingy. So let's go ahead and give it our best go. Okay. So the solder flowed. I think it actually went pretty well. Not really sure, but you can see in here, I wish I could have gotten that part on camera. You can see the solder kind of has this, like, created this silver line on the inside edge of the bezel. I'm not sure why I said it like that. And on the outside, you should be able to see the silver line peeking through. There's a couple little gaps there, actually, it looks like. So, go ahead and cool this off, and we'll be back to look at it. I've decided to make one minor change to the design, which is switching from these wider pieces of silver to this round gauge. So in an effort to save time in the video, I just went ahead and did this off camera, but basically I just replicated exactly what we had here with the circular silver wire. So now our job is going to be to bend this like so, and then solder those regions. Okay, after a while of bending, I think I have it to a pretty okay place. It's not perfect, but basically solder that side and solder that side, and the bezel will be right in the middle. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna solder a piece of back plate behind here and get that whole area nice and secure. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. Got my solder all set up on the ends, got everything fluxed, so last thing we gotta do is turn on the torch and get this bad boy soldered. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Okay, we got a flow on that side. It's not the greatest weld, so I'm gonna have to add more solder, but we'll move on to the next side. Okay, so that was almost successful. Not the greatest weld. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna quench this, and then I'm gonna resolder it, probably put a little bit more flux on there and retry it, so. Okay, so after the second round of soldering, I mean, that looks pretty messy. You can see almost a full chunk of solder right there. It's not the greatest. However, I do think that the solder does mostly fill those gaps. The next thing we're gonna have to solder in is our bezel. So, yeah. Okay, so it's a pretty good fit, honestly. It's not soldered in there yet, obviously, but it's tight enough in there so that I could hold it in there while I solder. And so now I think I'm gonna solder it. I'm gonna use easy solder just because then the temperature won't melt either. I've got the bezel in here, about in the center where I want it. I've got flux in there. So now what I'm gonna do is just heat it up and solder it on. Okay, I think. I'm pretty sure it all flowed, so. Go ahead and quench it. Okay, I had to take a little bit of a break, getting frustrated because this wasn't soldering when it should be relatively easy. So I put it in the pickle, It's been in the pickle for a couple minutes, so take that out. Set it there. Okay, yeah, so we've got it all clean now. I'm gonna retry. It's already soldered pretty well on this side, but I just wanted to try and reinforce it a little bit. So threw some easy solder in those corners, but I'm gonna have to reflux it and add just a little bit more solder, and we're gonna try it again and see what we can do. Okay, here's what we're working with after soldering. The solder did flow this time, which is awesome. It doesn't look the absolute craziest and most secure, but it's in there. So now what we're gonna do is just trim these down and file them, clean it up a little bit, clean it in the pickle, and then from there we will be setting the stone and filing and polishing and bending to shape. So yeah, actually I think we set the stone after we bend it to shape. But for now, filing and cleaning up. I made it to the Rabbit Hole in Hood River, which is a jewelry studio that my mom runs with her friend, and I got this pretty much kind of filed and shaped down how I want it. I'm just gonna now use a ball peen hammer to add some nice texture to the bars here, because I don't like how smooth they are. So you can see now, after hammering for a little bit, you get quite a nice texture on the bands. So it just looks a bit more rustic and cool. One other thing I forgot about is putting some sort of marking on this to identify if I made it or not. So found this stamp here with a fish on it that I like. So I'm gonna go ahead and stamp that onto the band. Got one okay stamp here. I'm gonna try again. I just filed the old one off. I'm trying to get one good coherent one. Got the light on here. Not the greatest, but you can still see that there's a fish on there, partially. So I'm gonna go ahead and call that good. So now the next thing we're gonna do is set the stone, and then shape it, and then polish it. To make it shiny, we have to put it in the tumbler, this nasty poop water. My mom's helping me because she works at the jewelry studio.
Labor.
That's right. It just sits on there and doesn't fly off and run away. Alright, we're gonna pull it out of the tumbler quick. Check and see how it's looking. Mostly, there's some parts in there that need to be shined up. It's looking pretty good. Might leave them there for a couple more minutes, actually. Here, I'm just doing a little bit of extra grinding after I put it in the tumbler. And the next thing I have to do is set the stone. So I'll be using a little bit of sawdust to raise the stone up, and this allows for more control over the depth of the bezel edge as you're bending it over, so you don't have to file so much, and just make it a more flat edge. So yeah, here I am setting the bezel. I totally just cracked my stone in half.
I was just gonna say.
Now, normally this kind of thing would frustrate me, and it did in the moment, but sometimes you just have to go with the flow and address it later, so that's what we're doing. You'll figure out what I'm doing about that crack later. So yeah, cool. Bye. After considerable hammer hits, finally have it in a good shape, I think. It's gonna have to be custom fitted a little bit, but looks pretty good to me. Now that the bracelet is finally shaped, I'm just doing some last minute polishing before I address the major issue, which is the fact that there's a crack in the stone. Now I decided to go a little bit artistic with this one and fill it with silver shavings. And here I'm just filling it with some glue to seal it up. And shout out to Robin for the idea, so thank you so much. Okay, this is where we're at now. The glue has cured, the silver flakes are in there. I have to just clean out some silver flakes from these edges, polish it one final time, and it will be ready. Okay, after a little bit more grinding, I think I'm finally done with it. It's gotten to a pretty good place where, you know, it's got a little bit of a rough and ready look. Definitely looks handmade, and like I'm a beginner jewelry maker, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think I think it looks really awesome, and I'm happy with the way it turned out given the challenges that I faced along the way. So without further ado, let's get a closer look at the bracelet.